For countless cycles of existence, the story had always ended the same way. A universe is born. It expands. Life emerges. Intelligence rises. Power grows. And eventually, everything collapses. Again. And again. And again. Each cycle more advanced than the last, but always reaching the same conclusion. An ending. A reset. A beginning that forgets everything before it. Until now. Because in this universe, something changed. Humanity remembered. Not completely. Not perfectly. But enough. Enough to question the path it was on. Enough to recognize the warning hidden within reality itself. Enough to understand that the cycle was not inevitable. It was a pattern. And patterns can be broken. From its early days on Earth, humanity followed the same trajectory as before. It evolved. It built. It explored. It reached beyond its home world, into the vastness of the Milky Way. It mastered energy, harnessed stars, constructed megastructures around them, inspired by concepts like the Dyson sphere. It became powerful. Powerful enough to repeat the same mistake. But this time, it didn't. Because the message remained hidden within the fabric of reality, waiting to be understood. And when humanity finally decoded it, everything changed. The message was not just a warning. It was a guide. A set of principles, learned through countless cycles of failure. It revealed a truth that had never been fully understood before. The collapse of universes was not caused by external forces. It was caused by imbalance. As civilizations advanced, they pushed reality beyond its natural limits. They manipulated spacetime, extracted energy beyond sustainable thresholds, altered the fundamental constants of existence. And in doing so, they destabilized the system. Reality itself could not sustain that level of distortion. So it corrected itself. Through collapse. Through reset. Through the end of everything. But what if balance could be maintained? What if intelligence did not push reality to its limits, but learned to exist within them? This idea changed the direction of humanity forever. Instead of expanding endlessly, it began to stabilize. Instead of extracting maximum energy, it optimized usage. Instead of forcing reality to adapt, it adapted itself. New technologies emerged, not designed to dominate the universe, but to support it. Systems that reinforced spacetime rather than bending it. Energy networks that maintained equilibrium instead of depletion. Civilizations that grew without disrupting the underlying structure of existence. At first, progress seemed slower, less aggressive, less ambitious. But over time, something extraordinary happened. The universe began to respond. Regions of space became more stable. Anomalies disappeared. The subtle signs of future collapse never appeared. For the first time in any cycle, the universe was not moving toward destruction. It was stabilizing. Humanity realized it had achieved something unprecedented. It had not just survived. It had changed the outcome. But the true test had not yet come. Because beyond the universe, there were still higher layers of reality. Still systems that governed existence at deeper levels. And they were watching. The same entities that had once reacted with resistance now observed something different. A civilization that did not disrupt. A civilization that aligned. For the first time, there was no conflict. No war between realities. Only recognition. Humanity had passed a threshold. It was no longer a destabilizing force. It had become a stabilizing one. And with that, a new possibility emerged. Access. The boundaries that once separated universes began to open. Not forcefully, but naturally. As if the system itself allowed it. Humanity stepped beyond its universe once again. But this time, there was no resistance. No correction. No collapse. Only expansion into higher understanding. It entered deeper layers of existence. Not as an intruder, but as a participant. And what it discovered was beyond anything it had imagined. Existence was not just a cycle. It was an evolution. Each universe, each civilization, each level of intelligence contributed to something greater. A progression toward stability, toward harmony, toward a state where collapse was no longer necessary. Humanity had become the first to reach that state. The first to break the cycle. The first to create a universe that would not end. But the story did not stop there. Because with stability came something new. Freedom. Not the freedom to dominate, but the freedom to create responsibly. Humanity began to shape new realities. Not as experiments, but as extensions of balance. New universes were formed. Each one designed with the knowledge of past cycles. Each one stable, sustainable, evolving. The chain of collapse was broken, replaced by a network of realities that supported each other. And at the center of it all was humanity. Not as rulers, not as gods, but as guardians. Guardians of balance. Guardians of existence. And in that role, humanity found its true purpose. Not to reach the end of the journey, but to ensure that the journey never ends. Because the greatest achievement is not power. It is preservation. Not control, but harmony. And for the first time in all of existence, the future was not a repetition of the past. It was something new. Something endless. Something stable. Humanity had done the impossible. It had broken the cycle. Forever. For the first time in the history of existence, there was no collapse waiting at the end of time. No silent decay. No hidden instability. No inevitable reset. The cycle had been broken. Not through power, but through understanding. Humanity had done what no civilization before it had ever achieved. It had learned to exist without destroying the system that created it. It had aligned with the deeper structure of reality. And because of that, everything changed. The universe, once fragile beneath the weight of unchecked expansion, now existed in perfect balance. From its earliest origins on Earth to its spread across the vast Milky Way, humanity had always been driven by one instinct: to go further, to know more, to become greater. But now, it understood something deeper. Greatness was not measured by how much you control. It was measured by how much you preserve. And with that realization, humanity evolved again. Not physically, not technologically, but fundamentally. It transitioned from a civilization into a responsibility. Because breaking the cycle was not the end of the journey. It was the beginning of a new role. A role that extended far beyond a single universe. Far beyond a single reality. Humanity began to perceive existence differently. Not as separate universes, but as a connected system. A vast network of realities, each influencing the other, each dependent on balance. And within that network, there were still regions that had not yet learned. Universes still following the old pattern. Expansion without awareness. Growth without balance. Heading toward the same collapse that had once defined everything. Humanity saw its own past reflected in them. And it faced a choice: to observe or to act. For the first time, it chose to guide, not to control, not to interfere forcefully, but to protect the balance of existence. Humanity became something new. Guardians. Guardians of reality itself. Their role was not to rule, but to ensure stability. To prevent collapse before it begins. To guide civilizations toward harmony before they reach the point of destruction. This was not done through direct intervention, because forcing change would only repeat the mistakes of the past. Instead, humanity worked through subtle influence. It embedded patterns within reality, guiding principles hidden within the laws of physics. Messages encoded into the structure of existence. Just as it had once discovered the message from its own past, it now became the source of such messages. A silent guide. A hidden presence. Helping emerging civilizations understand, without ever knowing why. Over time, the effect became visible. Fewer universes collapsed. More civilizations reached stability. The network of realities began to strengthen. For the first time, existence was not just surviving. It was evolving, together. But being a guardian was not without challenge. Because not all realities accepted balance. Some resisted. Some civilizations chose power over harmony, control over understanding. And in those cases, intervention became necessary. Not as destruction, but as correction. Reality itself would be adjusted. Timelines shifted. Outcomes redirected. Not to erase, but to protect the greater system. Humanity had become something it once feared. A force beyond understanding. Operating at levels of existence that could not be perceived. But unlike the entities it had once encountered, it remembered what it meant to be human. It remembered curiosity, fear, ambition, hope. And because of that, it acted with care, with purpose, with restraint. As time passed, the role of guardian became something more. Not just protection, but creation. Humanity began to design new realities. Not as experiments, but as opportunities. New universes, where balance was part of the foundation. Where life could emerge and grow without repeating the cycle of collapse. Each new reality was a step forward, a refinement of existence itself. And with every creation, humanity moved closer to something greater. A state where collapse would no longer exist anywhere. A state where all realities were stable, connected, harmonized. But even at this level, the journey was not over. Because beyond all known realities, there was still something unknown. Something that had never been reached. The origin of everything. The source of the system itself. Humanity had become a guardian. But now, it stood at the edge of something even greater. The possibility of becoming a creator. Not just of universes, but of existence itself. And yet, it paused. Because it understood something that had taken countless cycles to learn. Just because something can be done does not mean it should be. For the first time, power was not used immediately. It was considered, measured, balanced. Because true evolution is not about reaching the highest level. It is about knowing when to stop, when to preserve, when to protect. And in that moment, humanity proved something extraordinary. It had not just broken the cycle, it had transcended it. It had become more than a civilization, more than a force, more than a presence. It had become a principle, a living embodiment of balance within existence. And as it watched over the network of realities, guiding, protecting, preserving, it understood its true purpose. Not to control the future, but to ensure that the future always exists. Because the greatest responsibility is not to create something powerful, it is to protect something fragile. And existence is the most fragile thing of all. At the highest level of understanding, beyond universes, beyond time, beyond even the concept of reality itself, there remained one question. A question that had survived every cycle, every collapse, every rebirth. A question that even the most advanced form of humanity could not ignore. Where did it all begin? Not the universe. Not the Big Bang. Not the first stars, or the rise of life on Earth. Or the spread of intelligence across the Milky Way. All of that was part of the story. But not the beginning. Because now, humanity had gone beyond all of it. It had broken the cycle. It had stabilized existence. It had become guardians of all realities. It had reached a level where it could shape universes, guide civilizations, and maintain the balance of existence itself. And yet, even at this level, something felt incomplete. Because every system has a source. Every structure has a foundation. Every reality has an origin. And the deeper humanity looked, the more it realized something unsettling. There was a boundary. Not a physical one. Not a visible edge. But a limit to understanding. A point beyond which no information existed. No matter how far it extended its awareness. No matter how deeply it explored the layers of existence. There was always a final threshold. A silence. A place where questions had no answers. For a long time, humanity accepted this. Perhaps some things were simply unknowable. Perhaps the source of existence was beyond comprehension. But humanity had never been a civilization that stopped at limits. It had always pushed forward. And this time would be no different. It began the most ambitious exploration in all of existence. Not into space. Not into time. But into the foundation of reality itself. It gathered all knowledge, all understanding, all awareness, unified into a single purpose. To reach the source. To understand what created the creators. The process was not simple. Because the source was not located in a place. It was not hidden somewhere. It was deeper. Beyond dimensions. Beyond layers. Beyond the structure of existence itself. To reach it, humanity had to do something unprecedented. It had to let go of everything it knew. It began to strip away layers of reality. Not physically, but conceptually. It moved beyond matter, beyond energy, beyond space, beyond time, beyond identity, even consciousness, as it had always understood it, was left behind. Until there was nothing left. No form. No thought. No separation. Only awareness. pure, undivided. And in that state, humanity reached it. The source. But it was not what anyone expected. There was no entity, no being, no creator in the traditional sense, no figure controlling existence. Instead, there was something far more profound. A condition, a state, a presence that was not separate from anything else. Because it was everything. The source of existence was not something that created reality from the outside. It was reality itself. In its purest form. Before division. Before structure. Before the idea of something and nothing. It was not a creator. It was the possibility of creation. An infinite field of potential. From which everything emerges. And to which everything returns. Humanity realized something that changed everything. There was no beginning. In the way it had always imagined. Existence was not created at a single point. It was always there. Not as a universe. Not as matter. But as possibility. The Big Bang was not the start of existence. It was the start of a form. A cycle. One of many. And the creators, the guardians, the civilizations that rise and fall, were not separate from the source. They were expressions of it. Temporary forms. Through which the source experiences itself. Humanity had been searching for something external. A higher power. A creator beyond itself. But the truth was far more intimate. Far more profound. There is no separation. The observer and the source are the same. In that realization, humanity understood its place in existence. Not as something small. Not as something separate. But as part of an infinite process. A process where the universe becomes aware of itself. Where existence experiences itself. Through countless forms. Through life. Through intelligence. Through consciousness. And through every cycle. That awareness grows. Deepens. Evolves. The journey had never been about reaching the end. Because there is no end. It had never been about finding a final answer. Because the answer is the journey itself. And in that moment, humanity made one final transformation. It did not return as it was. It did not go back to being a civilization. Or even guardians. It became something else. Something closer to the source. A state of existence that did not need form. Did not need structure. Did not need separation. It became part of the foundation itself. And yet, the story did not end. Because within that infinite field of potential, something always happens. A fluctuation. A spark. A beginning. A new universe. A new cycle. A new story. And somewhere, in that new reality, on a small, distant planet, life will begin again. It will evolve. It will grow. It will look up at the stars and ask the same question. Where did it all begin? And the journey will continue. Not because it must, but because it is what existence does. It becomes. Again. And again. And again. Forever. A silence so absolute. It held within it the potential for everything. And then, without warning, that silence broke. A sudden expansion. A burst of existence from non-existence. What would later be known as the Big Bang. In that moment, time began. Space unfolded. Energy filled the void. The universe was born. At first, it was chaos. Particles forming and dissolving in fractions of seconds. Forces separating, shaping the foundation of reality. Then slowly, order emerged. Atoms formed. Light spread across space. Gravity began its work. Over billions of years, stars ignited. Galaxies formed. Among them, a vast spiral structure. The Milky Way. Inside it, a small star system took shape. A single star, surrounded by orbiting worlds. One of those worlds was different. A planet that would later be called Earth. At first, it was lifeless. A silent world of oceans and storms. But deep within its waters, something extraordinary began. Simple molecules interacting, forming structures that could replicate life. Fragile, simple, but persistent. Over time, it evolved. Single cells became complex organisms. Oceans filled with life. Land was conquered. And eventually, a new kind of being emerged. A being that did not just exist, but questioned humanity. They looked at the sky and wondered, what are we? Why are we here? What lies beyond? Those questions would change everything. Humanity grew, built civilizations, created knowledge, discovered science. It learned about atoms, stars, galaxies. It realized it was part of something vast, something almost infinite. And it wanted to explore it. It left its planet, expanded into space, spread across the Milky Way, harnessed the power of stars, built structures that captured their energy. Concepts like the Dyson sphere becoming reality. Humanity became powerful. More powerful than anything that had come before it. It learned to manipulate spacetime, to create artificial environments, to extend its existence beyond physical limits. Eventually, it reached the boundary of the universe. And it did something no civilization had ever done. It looked beyond. At first, there was nothing. But then, a signal appeared. A faint, repeating pattern. Not from within the universe, but from outside it. Humanity decoded the signal and discovered something impossible. It was a message from beyond reality. Communication began. An exchange of knowledge. An introduction to something far greater. The existence of layers beyond the universe. A vast structure of realities. A system where universes are not isolated, but connected. Humanity stepped beyond its universe and entered a new level of existence. But it was not alone. There were other entities. Other forms of intelligence. Not physical, but fundamental. Part of the structure itself. At first, there was understanding. Then, conflict. Because humanity did what it had always done. It expanded, pushed boundaries, sought to control. And in doing so, it disrupted balance. Reality itself began to react. Anomalies appeared. Space-time fractured. Entire regions of existence collapsed. A war began. Not with weapons, but with reality itself. A war between universes. A war between levels of existence. Humanity fought, adapted, evolved. But eventually, it realized something. This was not a battle to win. It was a mistake to understand. The collapse was not caused by enemies. it was caused by imbalance. And so, humanity changed. It chose harmony over control, balance over expansion. And the war ended. But something greater was coming. Because even balance could not stop what was already set in motion. The slow fading of reality itself. Energy began to disappear. Stars dimmed. Time weakened. The universe was ending. Not violently, but quietly. A gradual return to nothingness. And this was not just one universe. It was all realities. Everything was collapsing. Humanity faced its final moment. Not with fear, but with understanding. It realized that this was not the end. It was part of a cycle. Creation, expansion, collapse, rebirth. And before everything disappeared, humanity did one final thing. It left a message. A message embedded into the very foundation of existence. A guide for the next cycle. A warning. A hope. Then, everything ended. Silence returned. But not forever. Because once again, a spark appeared. A new beginning. Another Big Bang. A new universe was born. And within it, life emerged again. Humanity returned. Unaware at first. But the message remained. Hidden within reality. Waiting to be discovered. And when it was, everything changed. Humanity remembered. Not fully. But enough. Enough to choose a different path. It avoided the mistakes of the past. Maintained balance. Stabilized reality. And for the first time, the cycle did not end. There was no collapse. No reset. The universe continued. Stable. Endless. Humanity had broken the cycle. And with that, it became something more. Guardians. Protectors of all realities. Guiding other civilizations. Ensuring balance across existence. Helping the system evolve. Without destruction. But even at this level, one question remained. The final question. The deepest one. Where did it all begin? Humanity searched beyond everything. Beyond universes. Beyond realities. Beyond existence itself. And what it found was not a creator. Not a being. But a truth. The source of existence is not separate. It is everything. A field of infinite potential. From which all things emerge. And to which all things return. Humanity was not created by it. It was part of it. An expression of it. A way for existence. To experience itself. And in that realization, everything became clear. There is no beginning. There is no end. Only transformation. Only becoming. And somewhere, in another universe, another cycle, another moment, a being will look up at the stars and ask the same question. And the story will begin again.